Cool. Okay, Exodus chapter 17. Last chapter, we learned about the manna, the bread that came down from heaven, and the birds. The people were like, man, remember when we used to be slaves in Egypt? And we would just sit by these huge cauldrons full of meat. Oh man, there was so much food. It was so good. I wish we would have died there instead of coming out into this miserable wilderness where there's no meat to eat. And they complained to Moses. Moses brings it to the Lord, and God's like, they're not really complaining about you, they're complaining about me. And he gives them, interesting, he gives them exactly what they asked for, and then more. He gave them meat, and he gave them the birds. Birds just fell out of the sky, and the people were like, awesome, they roast them up and they ate them. And then, he also, on top of that, gives them food from heaven. Food from the sky. Every day it would come down from the sky and sit on the ground, and the people would gather it up, about an omer per person, which is around half a gallon. So half a gallon of this fluffy sky food that apparently tasted like seed cakes and honey. So seems pretty good. So they also saved some of it in the ark. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron placed it before the testimony to be preserved. And the people of Israel ate the manna 40 years till they came to a habitable land. They ate the manna, guys, till they came to the border of the land of Canaan. By the way, an omer is a tenth of an ephah. How much is an ephah? It's a lot. It's like 5 gallons. It's like a 5-gallon bucket. So 5-gallon bucket for 10 people. Is what they were gathering up a day. Water from the rock. Exodus chapter 17. All the group, all the people, all the congregation of the people of Israel moved on from the wilderness of sin by stages. So step by step, they're moving out of literally sin here. Isn't that cool? Like the desert is called Sin, which means like blackness. And they're moving out of this black wasteland, this wilderness, step by step, according to the commandment of the Lord. And they camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. Therefore the people quarreled with Moses. You guys know what quarreling is? It's where you're just picking little fights with somebody, right? Little fights. You're just picking at somebody. Yeah, why do you do that? Why are you doing it that way? Why are you doing it that way? Why are you doing that? Why don't you do that? It's better when that other person did this. And Moses, every day, all the people, well, why that way, Moses? What's up with that? Why wouldn't you do it that way? I think it'd be better if you did it that way. Everybody else does it that way, Moses. And Moses is just like, you guys are getting quarrelsome, aren't you? The people quarreled with Moses, and they said, give us water. And Moses said to them, why are you quarreling with me? Why do you wrestle with the Lord? Literally, it's like, what he says, why do you test the Lord here? But it's the kind of test where it's like, okay, you and me, let's go. And it's arm wrestling time, right? And it's like me versus the Lord. And that seems kind of silly. Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord? But the people, thirsty for water, they grumbled against Moses. And they said, why did you bring us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? Did you take us out here just to drown, or what's the word? Dehydrate us to death, right? I'm a little slow today. I just woke up. So Moses cried to the Lord, what am I going to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me. Right? You guys remember what stoning is? Mm-hmm. We're not drinking that now. Put that down. Leave it alone. Stoning is when the whole community gathers around and the person that accuses you throws the first rock and it smacks into you, and then they throw rocks into you until there's nothing but a pile of rocks with a dead person in the middle of it. And the people are almost ready to stone me, Moses says. And I've lost my place. And the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people. Take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the stick with which you struck the Nile, and go. Check this out. I'm going to stand in front of you there on the rock at Horeb, and you will strike the rock, and water will come out of it. So take the stick that you parted the waters with, Smack that rock and it'll break open and waters are going to gush out of it. I'm going to tell you guys a secret. This is pointing forward to the rock who was struck to bring life, giving water to the nation of Israel and to the world. What are you talking about? The Bible says that rock that followed them through the wilderness. You mean there was a rock following them, right? Leaving a trail? What's up? Isn't that the rock we had yesterday? But I don't know, but that rock all throughout the wilderness, the Bible says, that rock was Jesus. Do you mean that Jesus literally became a rock before he became a baby human being? I have no idea. But I definitely know that rock that Moses hits with his staff and it breaks open and pours out waters, abundant waters for the people, that is teaching us about what Jesus did for them, the Jewish people specifically, and what he did for us. So, let's pay attention to this. As soon as I turn back a few pages, because I was gesticulating here enough to turn. Okay. 6. Behold, strike the rock, water will come out, and the people will drink. And Moses did exactly that in front of the elders of Israel, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah. And I'll bet I have some translators' notes here. Massah means testing, right? Struggling with God. And Meribah means quarreling, right? So Moses, he's like, I'm going to do what God says, but he didn't tell me what to name this place. I'll tell you what I'm going to call this place. Petty arguments, right? And struggling. You guys have been strangling me this whole time. Moses seems a little bit bitter here with the way that he names the place. That's my personal opinion. I know too much. I know what's going to happen next time. He's supposed to get water out of a rock, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. And because they tested the Lord by saying, is the Lord with us or not? Then Amalek came up and he fought with Israel at Rephidim. So they get the waters poured out for them. And then King Amalek comes and he's like, I'm going to wipe these people out before they even come to my land. Right? They all go charging, right? Shooting their AK-47s as they run. And Amalek with his army. But he's a king, right? And check this out. So Moses says to Joshua, choose for us men and go out and fight with Amalek. Hey, Joshi. Joshi's going to be the name of my little boy. I love it. By the way, the name Joshua is, hey, you're only supposed to point the camera at me. I gave you explicit instructions. Okay, be a good camera person. If you're especially good, I'll edit this part out. Okay, then Joshua, the name Joshua is Yeshua in Hebrew. Yeshua. There's no J in Hebrew. So anybody says that they're a Jehovah's Witness, be like, whose witness? Because there's no J in Hebrew. Anyway, Yeshua is the name of this guy. Moses says, hey, you gather up fighting men and go fight these people. It's kind of cool of Moses, right? He's like, you, get an army together. Go do it. Must be nice to be in charge. And the name Yeshua means that the Lord will save. God will save. And it's the same name that Jesus has. Jesus' name is actually Yeshua in Hebrew. So how do you get both Joshua and Jesus out of the name Yeshua? Lots of translations, right? Translating it to Greek and to Latin and back into whatever we use today. The name gets mixed up, but it's actually the same name. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So he tells Jesus, this guy's name is Jesus, to go gather up an army and fight King Amalek. And he says, tomorrow I'm going to stand on top of the hill with the stick of God in my hand. Go gather an army. You're going to go fight tomorrow. Okay. Do you know how long it takes to train an army and to get people ready for actual war? A whole lot longer than 24 hours. He's got just enough time to be like, okay, everybody follow me. And then Moses is like, go get him, sport. So he's definitely being very bold here, and I have the sneaking suspicion he's counting on God to do a miracle. So, Yeshua, Jesus, Joshua did as Moses told him, and they fought with Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of a hill. And whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel was winning. And whenever he lowered his hands, oh man, my arms are killing me. Whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek was winning. But Moses' hands were getting tired. Right? All right, experiment time. Hold your hands up. Just hold them up to the Lord and just keep them up there and see how long you can hold them up. Just keep doing it for the lesson. There you go, camera person, you're exempted. You just keep the camera on me and only me. Thank you. So they're holding their hands up. Keep them up there. Get nice and tired. Identify with Moses here. The battle has just started. The front lines are just starting to tease each other out. But Israel's definitely winning, and they're starting to scare those Amalekites. Oh, keep those hands up. The front lines are just starting to engage. Spears are being thrown. Insults are being traded. The young men are starting to jab at each other, right? Okay, keep it up. Keep them up there. But Moses' hands were getting tired, so they took a rock and they put it under him and he sat on it. Again, he's sitting on the rock here, right? Keep it in mind, that rock is Jesus. He's resting on the rock. And while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so his hands were steady until the going down of the sun, and Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this as a memorial in a book, and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Well, I mean, he's here in this book. But how many of you guys have met an Amalekite? Have you ever heard of the Amalekites? I mean, besides the fact that they obviously would live in the Middle East, which is far away from here, there's no Amalekites left, and this is the reason why. And Moses built an altar, and he called the name of it, "The Lord is my banner," saying, "A hand upon the throne of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation." So every new batch of babies born to the tribe of Amalek, they're going to be at war with the Lord. And one by one, he's going to wipe out that entire family, that entire nation. So, that's the chapter today.
Hey,
any
you're
questions?
Not the Lord.
Oh, everybody's got your hands up. Yeah, what's your question?
That's why I lowered it.
Yeah. Honestly, though, if you sent your baby into combat, you really probably deserve to get wiped out as a kid.
Okay, so you don't.
Yeah.
Do you want me to stop it? Or?
Yeah, you can stop recording.
How do you stop?
Never.
Just press the button.
Press the button again, yeah.